Okay, I'm really slow. Let me get my headset on. I was just like doing. I haven't done any like TikTok stuff for a while, so I just did one. I think it's funny. I don't know. Maybe not. Okay, let me find my headset.
So get this, the other day, going to bodega, just picking up some groceries, you know, talking to Jerry, saying that he's bothering me. This kid comes up to me, says to me, you know, just picking up some groceries, you know, talking to Jerry, saying that he's bothering me, not in a good mood. This kid comes up to me, says to me, you know, I don't believe in fairies. You know what I says to the kid? Well, that's too bad that your father didn't believe in condoms. I think of this makeup look today as kind of like Taco Bell. So get this, the other day, I'm going to bodega, just picking up some groceries, you know, talking.
Merlin, come here, buddy. Oh, that was my sorry, I didn't know I had my mic on. Ha! I was doing something for TikTok. You should go see it. It's funny. Go to my TikTok. Okay, all right. Headset. Hi, Merlin. Oh, you came down the stairs. Good boy. Wait, no, that's wrong. Ah, why can't I do anything? Oh, god damn it. Hold up. Ah, I'm having some difficulties, technically speaking. Okay, wait. So that should be on that then. Wait. Oh, right. No? No. No, 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 no. Huh? I keep forgetting how to do this. Oh, I got it. I got it. I have to switch to this one. Yeah, we got it now. We got there. It takes me a minute. Anyways, welcome to Housekeep-a-thon. Wait, you want to go see this real quick? Here, come with me. Can I go to TikTok on here? You know, I'll just go to Instagram because I put it on there too. I'm proud of this. I just like, I don't know. Okay, wait, here. Oh wait, no! Now you can't, oh my god, hold on. Let me go, wait a second. What am I doing? Okay, you can't even see it, huh? What is going on? Okay, this is that. Okay. What is happening here? Is that playing? Am I nuts? Oh, there it is. Okay, okay, get over here. Okay. Okay, look. I think I'm funny. Okay, so, me.
I think of this makeup look today as kind of like Tonker Bell.
So get this. The other day, I'm going to the bodega, just picking up some groceries, you know, talking to Jerry. Sciatic is bothering me, not in a good mood. This kid comes up to me, says to me, you know, I don't believe in fairies. You know what I says to the kid? Well, that's too bad it's your father didn't believe in condoms.
There you go. I think it's funny. Okay, alright, let's get out of this. Okay, that looks right. Let me get everything else going. Also, I feel like the background music is too loud. Hold on. That should be fine. Whoops. Whoops. Okay, we're back here. Great. Alright, welcome to cleaning everything! Hooray! We like that for us, you know? I don't think I want the music on today. I can't stand it. You know, sometimes I like it, sometimes I don't. Okay, so then in that case, I think... I'm not sure. Wait, if I put it here, then you should still hear the music, but I won't have to hear it. Correct? And then... Wait, what? Yeah, no, that should be right. Okay, and then if I go over to here, and I go to Housekeep-a-thon, then I go to my settings, and then I change these settings, voice and video. Let me know if you can't hear other people, because I'll do this differently. But you should be good. Okay, if other people come, which they don't have to. Okay, welcome to Housekeep-a-thon where we work on stuff. I'm tired? I don't know what I am. Actually, I don't know what I am. I'm fine. I'm fine. Let's throw on the Housekeep-a-thon stuff. In the bottom. Oh, that's wrong. That is not it. Okay, I gotta fix these. What the heck? Okay, stream time is where... Apparently, there's a way to make this happen automatically, and I didn't do it that way, and whoops. You know... Whoops. Okay, that should be right. Okay. Alright, yes, okay, cool. Alright, so I got laundry to do, I got Merlin that's sad. Feeling good overall. I have made progress in my understanding of the executive functioning impairments that I think are not specified enough in autism. So one way to explain it to people is that our memory when it comes to events and facts, very good. Exceptionally good, better than average. Our memory when it comes to what I'm supposed to be doing today, it does not work. So that, but for I think a regular person, a typically developed person, that kind of gets lumped in together as like, oh, that's just all memory, isn't it? And it's not. There's two things going on that are distinct enough that like it probably doesn't even make sense to conceptualize them as one thing. Okay, there we go. So, but it gets conceptualized as one thing to people whose brains work. Yay, I made people laugh. I love when I get to make people laugh. That makes me happy. Okay, let me check my... Alright, so yeah, so as I was saying, yeah, what am I doing is not gonna be translated in the brain in anything like the same way in autism. And what I should be doing today or over my life or in general is just not the same process. And I think for people who can use that, it just all is indistinguishable. It's all kind of one thing. Oh, sorry. I'm gonna move. Oh, I forget how to do this. You know, we'll just leave that there. I think I can drag this away from it. There we go. Okay, now I have control of the music. Okay, any sound issues? Is sound working? Can you hear me? Test, test. No. Yes. Okay. Just making sure it's all good. Yeah. Okay. Merlin, you wanna go outside? Okay, buddy. I have so much laundry to put away. So yeah. So trying to translate things across. Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you. Now I feel confident. Oh, I also need to change the size of this. I always end up doing this weird. 1 second. Does that look better? Nope, too big. Hang on a second. Let me do it like from here. Then a little bigger here. Perfect. Okay, great. Yeah, so yeah, what I should be doing is this serial sequential thing that I'm saying just doesn't function. That we ought to try to bypass it as much as we possibly can. The more we can bypass it and go and move it into something that we can use, the better off we'll be, is my hypothesis. So that maybe is how we can explain it to people. It's basically like, I remember events that happened in my life with like cinematic recall, and also that ability to do that sort of recall actually leads to other abilities which we can talk about for compensating, but for now, good enough to just know that. And I'm really good at remembering facts that are relevant to some sort of a structure, and that I can zoom in and zoom out on the categories that overlap and understand systems that way. Okay, great. But you could just, you know, make that even simpler. Okay, wait, I keep forgetting that people won't respond well to that. You can just say, I can remember, and I can remember facts. I cannot remember what I'm supposed to be doing. What I'm supposed to be doing today, what I'm supposed to be doing right now, what I'm supposed to be doing this week, what I'm supposed to be doing this year, what I'm supposed to be doing this lifetime, this month, this hour, this minute. I cannot do that part, which sounds crazy, maybe, but way better to just lay that on the table, and then people can believe me or not, but then they won't be surprised. Or they'll be less confused by it, you know what I mean? I'm like, believe it or not, this is possible. Alright, anyways, also happy autism acceptance awareness, etc. Happy autism etc. month. And I think today is the official day. So, okay. Right on. Yeah. Now, I have a lot more papers to read. And a lot more category theory to learn. So I think abstract reasoning is going to be our saving grace, and it has been our saving grace. And if we are to do better in life, we need to train it up even more, so that can be how we get around in the world. And we need to be
really, really good at it, so we can also kind of like pivot people over to talking and thinking this way, because everybody can, but just like getting them to operate in a way that we can actually interface with by guiding and leading the conversation into that. Instead of what I think is currently happening, possibly, is my thinking currently, what's happening is people are used to being able to do what I should be doing today, what I should be doing this minute, and talking in those terms to you. So their default is to just use that willy-nilly and not notice when that's the gear that they've moved their motor into. So now they're moving on that alone, which is actually a pretty good metaphor. So that's how they're getting around. And I'm like, I don't have that gear. My car will stall. My vehicle will stop moving. So then what I could do is pull people out of that, which would be more comfortable than them trying to get me in. Well, not even comfortable. More possible. It would be comfortable for most people because like it's very, very weird to not have episodic and fact memory. Like if you have that problem, oh boy, everybody knows it. Like a doctor, multiple doctors and specialists also know it, because that's a much more catastrophic problem than what we have, which is a little bit difficult for people to even conceive of, because you can do so much with episodic and data as your memory anchor, as your functioning memory, right? So yeah, so that's what I think. How to translate that into ideas that people can apply, or tools, etc. That's sort of what I'm working on. Well, sort of. That's what I'm working on. At least a prototype of it, and then we'll see where that can go. Who knows where that can go? Hopefully somewhere good. Hopefully somewhere big. I try to remember that people that I think are flying by the seat of their knowing what they should be doing pants. Sometimes I'm like, why the heck are they all the way up there, and I'm struggling to, function as an adult who can earn enough money. I'm like, oh yeah, so I don't even feel bad if I push myself a little bit forward in the herd, because there's people in the herd that like, I do not think you should be in the front of the herd. I'm like, I don't like that. Okay, yeah, so that's that. And we'll see if anybody wants to jump onto the call today. And since I've been on YouTube for a while, we'll start getting to a point where we can open up this call to new people. It takes a little bit of time, but yeah. All right. So great. I'm gonna charge my phone. I put really cheap but effective pegboards up in my room by my bed, because I have my weird little loft bed thing and I couldn't reach anything. It was weird. So I put them up on the wall, and now I have all of these chargers and everything that I need, and pens and alarms and whatever. So that's cool. All right, now to start putting away clothes, I think. So I think I'm going to talk about autism a lot today, because it is our month and it is our special day to acknowledge autism. And yeah, that's what I want to do. I was going to start by talking about, well, what I just did. I already covered that. I want to talk about, I got it. I want to talk about one more thing to add to our model of affect. So affect is a mood cube, right? At the very least. There's other ways to add to it, but the most relevant to how we're experiencing and how I think we can build concepts successfully that are more adaptive and inclusive of autistic people and others, is to do that valence, arousal, The last vector, making it a cube, is sensory amplitude. And now we have viscosity. So viscosity is how I'm going to get us to think about effort. So if something takes more effort to move through in affect, to get from one to the other, we're going to think about that as viscosity. So the sense of effort. I think for many autistic people, that upper right quadrant is surprisingly effortless because we use episodic and semantic memory rather than being able to use that list thing. That list thing, I don't know. I'm assuming that that also feels pretty good. You get a lot of rewards for doing it. I'm not sure how it works because I don't have it. I assume what ends up happening is your brain punishes you for not doing things that you're supposed to be doing and rewards you for doing them. And somehow that's like going across the valence, threshold of there's a problem, there's a solution. So I think that's what's happening. But it's harder. It's harder. So it's harder to move that way anyways, if it's not even impossible for us. And then I think what happens with holistic or traditionally developed, that's not the right one. Typically developed, there we go. Typically developed people is like the least viscosity in any of the quadrants or any of the spaces is the rest area. So it's like the easiest thing to do is to just like check out and rest, but that would not be the easiest thing to do. That would not be the easiest thing to do for an autistic person because the sensory problems. So besides for just like general stress, we don't get to feel rested because we're having these issues with being unable to tell what we should be paying attention to and what's noise and what's signal. So we pay attention to a lot of things that are sensory information that other people don't. And it reads as like possibly something we need to do something about. Your science brain is confused. Wait, come back here. Do I need to draw it out? I will. Do you want me to draw it out? I can wait. Basically, effort is something I could start talking about. And what I think one issue of autism is we have way too many things in our lives that have a sense of extreme effort. And the thing that's like effortless or the most effortless for us, people might discourage us from doing because for them, that's pretty high effort. And for us, it wouldn't be. So using like, if you exclusively use basically this declarative and well, the kind of memory that I've been talking about rather than non-declarative, if that's what you use your whole life, it's not that hard to just keep going into learning mode and moving around with that. Like it feels good, you're pretty happy, you get stuff done. When you rest, you get as much rest as you can. But comparatively, that's also better than trying to rest and your sensory processing is still going because that's just how autism is. So the sense data is still getting like signaled like problem. So when we try to rest, we end up in the top left quadrant instead of the bottom right. So the easiest thing for me to do is to actually work on problems that I feel confident that I can learn enough about to do something. Yeah, let's do it. Okay, so I'm gonna grab my board. All right, so here's what I'm thinking we can talk about now. Also, I should have eaten, so I just realized that. I should eat some food. I forgot to eat. Okay. All right, so yeah, I have eaten nothing. Sometimes that happens. Sometimes, eating's weird. It's just a weird thing to do. Okay, so. Oops, that's kind of bright. Let me go darker. Here. This will work. So I prefer the chisel side, so. Come on. Ink, 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 ink. There we go. Okay, so here we go. All right, good old affect, right? Valence plus negative, negative plus arousal. And then we know sensory amplitude goes this direction, or up, right? So think about viscosity. So technically it's a mood cube. It's a terrible, terrible cube, but yeah, technically it's a mu cube. So think that there's like a substance and it's thicker in some areas and not so thick in others, and this is what you're moving through. So I think okay, just a note, learning, you need some arousal for, and you need some feeling of like the problem is getting solved through learning or not. If you really can't solve it through learning, I'm assuming that's when we run like hell and we give up on that. But okay, so this is simplified, right? This isn't exactly what's going on in your brain. Your brain is extremely complicated, blah, blah, blah. But we're going to think about there being a sense of effort to move through any of this, right? So for an autistic person, I'm suggesting that the place with the least viscosity inside of this cube is here, basically. Or like, I guess that'd be like do-do, 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 do-do. Like right about here, right? Viscosity is not Z. Z is, wait, what? Like Z is, X, Y, Z is the other vector, right? So that's sensory amplitude is the other vector. Viscosity is different. So viscosity is just a sense of effort. So sense of effort. Viscosity is more like, so example, you know I was saying like drugs can take you really fast from like here to here, and now you're manic or something. So that's almost like you're cutting through the viscosity. So normally it would be pretty hard to go all the way from there to there. And so viscosity is actually like a sense of effort, but I'm using viscosity to say that like there's resistance, but ultimately it's like how easily and how fast you can displace, how easily and fast you can move, right? So if you're the thing moving in this substance, your velocity is impacted by the viscosity, basically. Like this velocity is change in displacement, change in where you are, change in location, versus divided by the change of time. So like how fast can you move and how far can you move? And viscosity would affect how fast and far you can move, right? So I'm considering that to be effort. So if it's really easy for you to move far and fast, then that viscosity is low. The resistance is low. The thickness of the substance inside of the cube is not very thick. So in order for me to move around, like I think the best place for me to be is here. Being here is actually really difficult because I have so much sensory amplitude issues that it's very difficult for me to actually arrive here. So for me, weirdly enough, like one of the easiest place for people to settle, which is just chilling, is really hard for me to get to because the sensory amplitude is still going and it makes this thick. It makes this quadrant, which would be, oh boy, this is a terrible model, somewhere down here, right, would be really thick. So I can probably reduce this, like if we made a mood cube, there's probably ways to get here by removing sense data, but usually that, the world and other people aren't going to do that for me because they don't experience this. So there's just like not a lot of empathy or commiseration in being stuck here. So there's not a lot of things to stop. So then I end up, it's easier for me. There's like a speedway to go back up here because of all the sensory problems that are registering as problems for me. So the current that I live in, like, it's very hard to get here. I'll use a dotted, line to suggest that it's hard to get here. It's very easy to end up here if I do make it here. And then it's pretty freaking easy to get back over here, actually. But people discourage this because this is where they say I'm working too hard. This is where they say I'm thinking too much. This is where they say, like, hey, that would be really hard for me. They're trying to have empathy, and they're trying to make me go back here, which is really, really hard for me to get to. And if I do even manage to get down here, it's a mess because, well, first of all, they're probably trying to take me from here to there, and that's like damn near impossible. If anything, it's easier for me to drop down here to depression. So max viscosity is from here to here. Minimum viscosity is kind of from here to here, to be honest. And then the best one in terms of like very low viscosity and a good goal is this guy, is this pathway to get into this quadrant. Well, yeah. Right? And even I'd say like going from here to here is actually pretty hard. Like that has that's pretty tough to travel. So if I get up here, I'm less likely to be depressed. But then people want me to go over here and just, collapse. What's up?
Hello.
Hi. Can everybody hear Rowan?
Can you hear me with my words coming from my mouth hole?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Okay.
What's up?
Oh, I was explaining how viscosity can be an aspect of our mood cube.
What?
So, you know how we have
like as in the flow rate of fluids?
Yes, because
Okay,
follow me. So if the cube was filled with some sort of a substance, right? But different parts of the cube have more or less viscosity, then that could show that going through some areas for some people would require more effort.
Sure.
Or less effort. And this is helpful because a sense of effort can also be included in valence, which I learned from LFB during that terrible interview that I posted in Imaginarians. And but yeah, so we can start to incorporate a sense of effort, even though in terms of like what's useful to think about for affect, it may not be the biggest thing to think about, but it might be important for us to think about in that we may have a greater sense of effort all the time, especially because people don't realize the place that has the least viscosity for us may have the most for them, and they don't want us to go there, which is, I'm suggesting this like state of learning and learning and learning and learning so that we can compensate for our impairments by using different methods. But for most people, that learning thing would be high viscosity to get to and to move around in. So people are like, well, no, you should just do this other thing instead. And so what I think they try to make us do is relax, go to the bottom right quadrant, which going there is really, really hard and also shoots us right back into the top left quadrant of like terrible valence high arousal because we cannot filter out sensory data that might be alarming. So we basically we
need like we need external support.
Right.
Like literal, like we literally need to be androids or cyborgs in order to like successfully exist in the bottom right quadrant.
Right.
We need, ear defenders. We need like eye covers. We need like fidget toys. We need like extra comfort. We need weighted blankets, right?
Right.
Otherwise, we're just, continuously still stuck I'm getting a call from Seattle.
Oh, interesting.
Oh, they didn't give me enough time to answer. Okay,
Oh,
guess it wasn't that important.
I guess not.
Well, and I wanted to say as well, that it could be useful to sort of view this metaphor within the context of like adaptation as well.
Okay.
I'm sure that there are different like water biomes that have different viscosities, right? Like I imagine that aside from the chemical sort of environments of a swamp versus like, you know, a lake or something, like you're dealing with different levels of liquid viscosity.
Mm-hmm.
And so the different animals and creatures that live there are going to have to adapt to existing in that environment.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it could be useful to also sort of consider that within the context of the metaphor, because it's not just that we need to be in the top right quadrant to like sort of exist, but like we've arrived there by necessity.
Right. Yes.
Right? Like this is how we survived. We survived by just constantly observing everything around us and trying to absorb as much information as possible, because if we just attempted to go with the flow, like, you know, I would say I've observed many neurotypical people being able to just do, we would fail spectacularly.
Right. So they say, yes, exactly. So then like yes. Okay, so a couple things. I think we need to bring our level of effort down, but people don't realize where our effort put us. We've been basically, we got a big chunky hippocampus now on the right side because of this. So so that means we can do this work as often as we're doing it, and it's not a big deal because our brain grew to do it. So it is actually less. It's like, I think the sense of effort and the actual effort is less for us, because we have regions of our brains able to do that. And also, if we're doing that, then we're not doing this awful thing of like trying to process the sense data, which this idea of like autism of going inside of yourself is really good, because that is the adaptive strategy, is what I'm suggesting, is that it's good that we go inside of ourselves. And if people just trust us that, hey, you keep an eye on the environment, I'm going to check out. I don't know where I am. I never have anyway, so don't worry about it. I don't know where I am in a sequence. I don't know where I am in the room, and I need some time to just not know where I am. And that's just has to be how it is. And during that time, I'll do what I do instead, which is use my beefy hippocampus, or right hemisphere of it, rather. So yeah. So viscosity is just like a sense of effort. So the reason I wouldn't be very specific with it is just anything that causes a sense of a lot of effort for you. It could be anything. The effort could get worse or better. You have to think that this is actually adding more complexity, so I wouldn't get more specific, I would get more general. So the level of abstraction is more. So this is more abstract than what we were talking about earlier. So it wouldn't be appropriate to put it layers like lower in an abstraction. Like this is a higher level of abstraction. So what I'm saying instead is that there's a lot of things going on in the environment. There's a lot of things going on with your energy. There's a lot of things going on with like how inclined you are to keep going forward or to run away. There's a lot of that going on, but at the same time, your ability to do so is different at different times for different reasons. So I'm suggesting that some of it's probably mapped on top of, if we think of it as a cube, certain areas of the cube have a general consistency of like how hard it is to move through it for you, or how easy it is to move through it, which can be good or bad depending on where you're going. But to think of it that way is just to give you a better sense of like, one of the other issues that we have is perhaps we're just simply experiencing too much effort, which sounds right to me, because I'm constantly, since I was a kid, talking about like, why is everything so hard? I'm trying so hard. I'm not moving very far, but I'm trying like hell. And I can see that other people are not trying as hard as me. Not to say that they don't have times when they're trying harder than me and having a lot of resistance, but in general, I saw that people could do more, had less resistance, and were able to, basically take more rests because they didn't need to have as much effort overall. So this is a way to describe that that's like relatively abstract.
And I mean, like, sort of, this is like a funny, I guess, but being with the abstraction, like, I think that the idea of like keeping in mind what it is you want to do or want to be doing, sort of helping you make sense. Oh my god, hold on. I need to take a picture of my cat right now. He is being very goofy. No, don't move. No, don't move. Cats. You're like, the cat is doing a weird thing. Let me take a picture. And he's like, what? No. Well, that's unfortunate. That would have been a fantastic picture. Anyway, back to what I was saying. Because, like, with it, like, having the context of what you're doing is important, right? Like, if I'm trying to get from point A to point B, and between point A and B is a pool full of maple syrup, that's gonna be really hard. I don't think I can swim through maple syrup very easily, and it's gonna take a lot of effort to get from A to B. But if I just want to hang out in a pool of maple syrup, maybe that would be pretty nice. I don't know. It might be pretty cool to be surrounded by, like, thick liquid. So, like, I'm mostly just being goofy right now, but, like, I think there's, something valuable in there that, like, depending on where you are, you can sort of stop and evaluate, all right, well, what is it that I want right now? What do I want to be doing? What is my goal? And you have the ability to sort of reassess what it is that you want. And you can change what you want based on your environment. If you're in a place, if you're, abstractly, if you're somewhere in the cube where the viscosity is very high and it's requiring just way too much effort to do the thing you want to do, maybe it's time to do something else.
Yes.
That works with the thickness of that viscosity. Maybe you just need to do that for a while, and you don't need to forget about the other thing you want to do, but maybe that's not where your priority should be, because that's not going to actually help you. It's going to make things worse, because you're going to exhaust yourself ad infinitum trying to push through this high effort zone to accomplish a goal that could be probably accomplished later in a zone that's more conducive to that goal.
Right. And also one concern would be is if, let's say, our brains are sort of keeping track of generally how much effort we are having to experience, maybe there's a threshold that all humans generally hit, and autistics might even hit the same threshold as everybody else, where once you've identified that you've experienced so much effort, you are not okay. Like, it's a signal of danger just in and of itself that you're having to experience this much effort. So one of the issues is, like, maybe we need to keep our general experience of effort down to keep it below whatever that threshold is. And that's assuming that, like, it's not artificially higher or lower in autism, who knows, or that it even, I'm just proposing this might exist in the human organism, this awareness that, like, there's a certain point where if we're doing that much effort, something's wrong.
I have a question about this.
Yes.
Something that just popped up. Okay, so you have, in the past, defined anger as a retaliation against some kind of hurt or fear that you could not prevent.
Yes. And that you would have prevented. Oh, go ahead. Sorry. Let me add one note to that. that you would have prevented had you had the correct information.
Right. Do you think, this is like really niche, but do you think, I guess it's not that niche, that the sort of like uncharacteristic level of anger that can come with playing video games
Mhm.
is a product of the thing you just described, where there is a like, because
right,
as somebody that's played video games a lot and a lot and a lot, it's super easy for me to disconnect what I'm doing in the game from my life. Like, if I want to, like, I can get immersed and you know, get scared, or you know what, I can feel the emotions the game wants me to experience, but I still I can consciously know, like, this is not real danger. I can just pause the game and my brain just is no longer sending me those signals. So like, we're capable of disconnecting that, any danger signal that comes from playing a game, from the game itself, from the experience. So do you think that it could be a product of that thing you just described, that like,
yes,
there's so much effort going into this thing and you have like above and beyond crossed this threshold,
yes,
but there's something sort of compelling you to continue, but you're still getting that signal from your brain being like, okay, I think we put too much effort into this, and then it just like turns into rage and anger.
Yes, I do think so. If what I'm proposing fits nicely with the other models that I've been proposing, then yeah, that would follow. Let me think about it for a second, because then how would that?
Because most often when someone gets angry, right, especially like, if you know, obviously the internet exists now, so like if you look up videos on YouTube or something of like angry gamers, it's usually after they have failed to succeed at something in a game over and over and over and over again until they snap and like scream and break something.
Right. So,
which, like, in my experience, I've had like angry meltdowns where I've broken stuff because of a video game. It's only happened a couple of times for me, but it has happened.
is that experience, and I have some versions of this, but maybe not as extreme, so I want to check on your experience of this. Would that experience have been in any way analogous to somebody tricking you?
In the case that immediately comes to mind that was sort of most explosive, I'm inclined to say yes.
Okay.
Because it, and this might, I don't know, my response might be a little bit muddled, because it was a game that has like high levels of randomness.
Mm-hmm.
So you can be faced with like a certain degree of difficulty one time more so than the last.
Right.
But sort of the frustration that can come with being tricked is, I'm smarter than this, I'm better than this, I shouldn't have been fooled.
Mm-hmm.
And that, I can recall that's where a lot of my anger was building up from, was I kept failing where I knew I could succeed, where I had succeeded in the past quite spectacularly, and yet I was failing over and over and over again. And I had a lot of other stuff going on at that time, so like, I was definitely filtering a lot of my general frustrations and stresses through this experience, which resulted in this explosive meltdown that I had. It's not a common behavior I experience, and like, it's something I've been working on even more so since then. So it's not something I would expect, especially not being as invested in games as I used to be. But yes, I think that was a lot of words that I.
No.
Yeah.
So then I think it is useful to keep folding in that idea of like anger as being given misleading information, that had you been given more accurate information, you would have been performing better, you wouldn't have incurred the damage or the even if it's just like to your, that metaphor of the body budget, even if it's just to that, that's a problem. So it's that might be a response to, since we're so social, that's just kind of like in us, of like, that tribe member sucks, or whatever it is. So we may feel a strong response to that, to get that tribe member out. If they're doing that repeatedly, then they're hurting everybody. So okay, so then so I think that's appropriate to keep folding in that idea, since we are kind of coming up with like, it's like, this is really abstract, but the point of it being abstract is that this is going to be a better model than the dualistic bullshit that we've been given, that's also very abstract but wrong. So it's worth it to say like, this isn't exact, but I think that still functions. You could fold that into it. And yes, I agree that if this model that I'm suggesting is coherent, then that would follow that when people are freaking out at the video game, they've incurred that sort of damage, that sort of hurt. They're interpreting it as betrayal and being tricked from somebody who is not giving them accurate enough information, not logical, rational information. And and especially with a game, you're expecting it to be at least somewhat rational. And then you would be hitting that threshold that we're all, basically, I wonder when we do hit that threshold too, if there is a social component to it on some level. Like, we aren't supposed to hit that threshold unless if we are, like, things are going really south socially. That could be, that's interesting.
Well, and that actually makes me, brings me to sort of think about things on a more systemic level, right? Like, it's no question that we are currently living in a very isolated time socially, not just because of the pandemic, but just our culture, right? Like, this has been going for decades now, that we're becoming more and more fearful of each other. We're almost conditioned, or we are conditioned to be less reliant on each other, to be more independent, more personally responsible about things.
Which conflicts completely with the way that we can connect to each other, by the way. Like,
exactly.
It doesn't make any sense.
When you were saying that just now, what I was thinking is that, like, we're not supposed to reach that level of effort because we were supposed to ask for help like days ago.
Right.
But we're now living in a society where we are very much encouraged not to ask for help. Things are sort of, we are drifting back in a direction that's a little bit more pro-social. We're starting to get back in that direction, but I mean, like, we're working under upwards of 70 or 80 years of like objectivism and sort of the American way of individual responsibility. So I feel like that could be a lot of it, that as a species we evolved both physiologically and culturally, that when we reach sort of the upper limit of our effort levels, we stop and ask for help, because we're like, oh yeah, I don't have to do this alone. This is what I'm built for, is to be like, hey, this is hard. You want to help me out? Let's do it together. Because not only does that save your body budget, but it also does the pro-social thing. You're building a relationship with somebody by sharing an experience.
The problem with being autistic then is you're asking for help, and then the people tell you to do the thing that absolutely won't help, that will make it worse.
Right.
And so there's like, oh, that's so interesting. Like, I want to get out of this poetic language of describing what it's like to be autistic, because I think it serves us as an artist. Like, it's good to develop our voice as an artist, but we can't live there. Like, this isn't a fictional thing that's happening. There's a real thing that's going wrong here between me and other people, and I'm experiencing it all the time, and other people are not. Like, they're experiencing me for short amounts of time, and I want them to understand that I am still human, and we could, and Lauren talks about this, we could possibly put them in a little like weird Skinner box or a sandbox of some kind where we can create the same sort of conditions for their brain, and I bet they would respond relatively similar in these like sense of rejection or fear of other people, or like just like I can't trust people to understand what things are like for me and then help me in ways that are appropriate. Now,
right.
That's changing rapidly, right? But I still have to direct the conversation in order for it to go well at this point, or better.
So, and I guess sort of trying to keep in the direction of kind of what we're sort of talking around. I do wonder if this is a social response, that as a product, like if you want to help someone, like you should listen to them, but like you have to have a sort of intuitive response to their needs, right? It's difficult. Think about trying to help somebody in like a technical field that you don't understand.
Right.
They might as well do it themselves because they're going to have to walk you through the entire process. Right. So if you want to help somebody sort of in a more social way, that's really esoteric. So you sort of by necessity have to intuit the process. You have to think about, well, okay, well, how would I react in this situation? How does this most closely to relate to things that I've experienced? And what would I do? Because what else are you supposed to do, right? If you're not a behavioral psychologist, which even itself has some issues, like you're not going to have this library of research you've done on the whole gamut of the human experience. So I think that has to be part of it, is that there's just not, and I mean, I'm almost stating the obvious here, now that I'm reaching the end of my statement, that like there just hasn't been enough information or representation of actual autistics in the world for people to model what this is like and to model what our needs actually are. And because I've said this before, that like the autistic experience is very much a human experience. Everything that autistic people deal with are things that everyone can deal with on a sort of moment-to-moment basis, or like a day-by-day basis, that it's, oh, well, there's this going on, so you're extra sensitive to sounds and sensory input for some reason, or you're so far out of your comfort zone that you don't even know how to apply your social aptitude to this situation. Like there's a lot of different ways that we can transpose the sort of constants of the autistic experience onto intermittent experiences of like a neurotypical person. And I think that's sort of the difficult part to translate, that like, no, I get that you can like sort of picture what this is like, but this is just every day for me, and it's constant. It never stops, and it's all at once. But yeah, I mean, I think you're right. I do think it's getting better.
Hang on, my headset cut out for a sec. Can you say the last thing that you said? My headset cut out. Can you go rewind like 15 seconds?
Yeah.
You're saying it was constant all the time?
Oh yeah, that was pretty much it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, great.
Yeah, just that it's hard to sort of translate that specific thing, that like, because I think it's probably a little bit some form of ableism, the sort of dismissive ideas, but like I do think that by and large that's where these sort of ideas of like, well, everybody's a little ADHD, everybody's a little autistic, is that like when any person hears an autistic person describe any aspect of their experience, they can see themselves, or they can recall a time where they had that experience.
It's kind of like, it would be like talking to somebody who's like paraplegic and saying like, well, my foot fell asleep in class the other day. It's like,
yeah,
cool, that's great. Like, or my foot falls asleep a lot because I keep sitting weird.
Well, you could even go further than that. Like, oh, I had a concussion once and lost feeling in my legs for a week. Right? Like that would be like an actual closer approximation, but it's still not the same thing.
Yeah.
You losing your ability to walk or feel your legs for a week is not the same thing as being permanently unable to walk.
It's like,
they're different things. Like, I can understand why somebody might make that personal connection, but they're not equal.
It's like, I was born, if you have like a hand, right? You could say like fingers are a spectrum, right? You can say that. Like, not everyone has 5, some people have 6, some people have other things going on, some people have less, right? So it's like, we're born with like 4 fingers. And then somebody says, I broke one of my fingers. I'm like, dope. Or even if they lose one, they still have like a very different experience than the person born without one of their fingers. So it's like, yeah, but okay. So it's like, you can apply this idea of something being a spectrum. It's just that like, some people cannot go to a place unless if they actually have a physiological reason for being there. And we're saying this is a developmental condition, and like it's neurodevelopmental. It's from birth. It's from, I mean, it's genetic, as far as we understand for most of us. It's just in our DNA, and it's just going to be active, and it just is what it is. So it's like, it just doesn't make sense in that way, where it's like, okay.
Well, and that analogy actually works really well, because if somebody lost a finger, right, that would be much closer to somebody being born without, and that could be analogous to
traumatic brain
injury. Somebody with CPTSD or traumatic brain injury, where they weren't born with this sort of genetic physiology, but they did over time develop this physiology that mimics a lot of the experiences that we have on a day-to-day basis.
Well, there's structural overlap, or even if it's not exact, then it's close enough that like we're now dealing with some similar problems, and we can talk to each other.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And like it's really okay. Well, I mean, it was Autism Month, so it's really important for me to get people.
Oh, it is. Yeah. Like, which then triggers the thought that I'm gonna have every year for the rest of my damn life, which is, why the hell is April Fool's in the same month as autism, like.
It works for me personally.
Like, I hate April Fools so much.
I know.
Every single year I forget about it.
I hate it too.
And then some weird shit happens and I'm just like, what the fuck? And then somebody says April Fools and I'm like, I hate humans.
Yeah, it's International Autistics Will Never Get the Joke Day.
Yeah. I'm gonna call it that from now on.
Yeah. Please do. Oh, happy birthday to your brother. You're both ASD. Yeah. That's cool. I'm glad that you have each other. I hope that that's turning out to be helpful. I know that sometimes people on spectrum, we can butt heads when we're siblings. I know this firsthand, but yeah. What was I gonna say? Okay. Oh yeah. Because of it being this month and such and so forth, I want to keep revisiting this idea pretty hard all month in any of my social media, that like, what I want to be seen as is somebody who actually has a structural difference in my brain, that it's very expensive to measure, but the odds that it's somehow not there after all this is like pretty much non-existent. But I really do have a different brain structure, and it's important to not think of the brain as literal magic. Like fucking pixie dust, you can grow anything inside of your brain, everything can do everything else in your brain. No. It is okay that some people's brains are missing parts, could never grow parts, grew other things instead. This is okay. And for some of us, we're really weird. It's not normal to be missing that. 90% of people have it. 95%. In the case of autism, we're going to have 98% of the people have that part of their brain that we don't. And in so much it's not gone, but it's better for them to think of it this way and not get as confused, similar to like being born without a pinky. So when they realize that's what I'm saying, when they say it's a spectrum, I'm like, 98% of the humans on the earth do not have this. So please don't say that, because I have this 2% life, and most of us in the 2% life are fucking eating shit. So please don't say that anymore.
I think
go ahead.
spectrum was such a poor choice of word. Because when people think of a spectrum, they think of like a 2D line in a textbook showing the different wavelengths of light, when spectrums are 3-dimensional, right? Like, it's not like the red wavelength is one single wavelength. It's multiple wavelengths at one time. So like, you know, you can extrapolate a color spectrum into 3 dimensions. Any spectrum is 3-dimensional. It's not 2-dimensional.
They're thinking of it as
and nobody's gonna like sort of intuitively see it that way.
Yeah, you have to tell them, hey, when you're saying a spectrum, is it analogous to a light switch with a dimmer on it that instead of going dark just goes Roy G. Biv? Is that what you mean by spectrum?
Right.
Because if so, this is not a good model. Like, it's just completely inappropriate. Like, it's not analogous to the situation. And then on top of it, when we understand that, like, we occupy this weird little tiny itty bitty, sector, it's very important for people to know that they don't occupy that. That, like, if that were true, I would not be having the problems I would have, because the entire world would be full of us and it would have conformed to our needs.
Yes. And to sort of piggyback off of what you were saying, I understand where the language came from around, like, trying to move away from autism as a disability, because there's so much dehumanization that comes with disability language. But I don't think it's useful. I think it's much more useful to be more direct with that in trying to combat the dehumanization by humanizing people with disabilities, because you know what, if some autistic people really do feel empowered by being autistic and you know, live a life in spite of their disabilities, fucking great. Super happy for them, genuinely wish I was in the 10%, but I'm not. And I need to be able to talk about my experience within the context of being disabled. And I understand the sort of positive quirks that come with that. I've adapted certain abilities that make me uniquely capable of certain things because of my disability, but that doesn't mean I'm not disabled.
Right, because but will you get the opportunity to actually apply that to your maximum potential? That's the problem.
Exactly. Right.
Yeah, because those opportunities come to a very different kind of person. So it's like, we kind of can't become the the typically developed person who can get into that room where we could show off what we can really do. That's the problem. Because that's the door. The door is typically developed person shaped.
Yes.
And that's not done on purpose. You see what I'm saying? It's like, it's just, that is an adequate door for 98% of people. So that's why the door is like that. It's a duck-shaped door, exactly. And we are not a duck.
It's a duck-shaped door.
Yeah.
We're not ducks.
We're not ducks. So then, so what I want people to know is, like, I do not think, I would be crazy to think, it does not follow to think that anybody made this door to spite us. Like, No,
of course not. That doesn't make any sense.
Right. But
I mean, like,
yeah, go ahead.
Are there people throughout history that did things to spite us? Sure, absolutely.
But even they didn't have that power.
No, and I mean they were doing it to spite most people.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, it's not like they were targeting autistic people. They were targeting an arbitrary vision of anyone that's not them.
Well, let's say I run into somebody.
And again, like you said, it's not like those people necessarily had power. Like, this is why it's so important to view things systemically, because everything developed and will develop as a system, iterative, on top of itself. No one person will have developed anything with very specific intent.
And it
right?
always changes
even the
with
intent
scale.
of the developments that we've seen throughout history is systemic, right?
So like, and it always changes with scale. And also, like, the other thing I want to say about that too is, like, let's say I do run into the odd guy that's like, I'm glad that the door is shaped like that. I'm like, cool, you didn't do shit. You just got born, eat poop, here you are. Like, I don't care about your opinion on the door. The door being shaped like that is not something anybody chose. It was just a byproduct of the forces at play being a certain majority of this or that or the other. And a lot of times the person that, would act like that can't get through the door themselves because everybody fucking hates them. Like, like they're just an asshole. So, like, they're also on the, I'm like, I've noticed you also haven't gone through the door, sir. That's odd.
Strange.
You're capable of going through the door, and yet you're out here. Is it possible that people threw you out? For the 5th time, 50th time, 70th, yeah, so that's the other thing too, is, like, if somebody has an opinion about it, they're just trying to, like, have a power play as if they're speaking for the gods or something. I'm like, you didn't pick this either. Nobody on earth picked this situation. Give me a break. Obviously not. And the mature person just deals with the situation as it is and realizes that how we got here wasn't because somebody had an evil genie. Like, so anybody trying to act like, oh, if I had an evil genie, I'm like, that's just not how things work, boo. Like, if you had an evil genie, right, you'd probably fuck it up anyway. Like, you'd accidentally make world peace. Because you can't think like that. You just don't.
Right. There is a certain sort of curiosity about how we got here as a species. Because I don't have the historical background to be able to answer this question. Because I'm sure that there are some very, cogent theories about how exactly our species became so culturally individualist. Because it's so, as much as I generally detest the idea of human nature, it is so against our nature to be this way.
We anchored it to religion and then anchored it to penises. That's how. Now we say, oh, to be a male is to be hyper-individualistic, blah, blah, blah. To be a female is to be this other thing in order to keep that
Sure, but
going.
Where did the idea that to be masculine is to be an individual necessarily... I'm almost inclined to not say, like, obviously religion is always involved, but, like, that it was more the development of dominant hierarchical structures.
Well, I think
right? The idea of like single male leaders.
Yeah, but the only way
right?
you need soldiers. So you need the state, you need soldiers, you need religion to get the soldiers to want to die. So like I think it's all of those things simultaneously. I think religion
Sure.
probably was there, and then it gets moved into this position in order for you to have countries that act like this and rulers that act like this. So I think it's militaries,
Well, I
wars,
mean,
religion.
by the time like proper monarchies rolled around, those were God-given kings, right? Like
Yeah.
that was the idea, is that kings um were appointed by God.
Hmm.
Um,
And that
so yeah,
implies
I don't know.
that.
It's just
So
I
it.
guess it's wild to me that that structure of sort of societal rule was so pervasive that it like fundamentally changed
Okay.
how we see ourselves as a species.
It's pervasive because it's a tautology. Once you're in it, you're stuck in it.
Yeah.
So it teaches itself and reinforces itself and suggests itself. So the reason why we're in it is as soon as you're in it, you're stuck. And abstraction is harder to do, and tautologies are easier to do. So they're like the bias is towards getting stuck in something where you don't have to think very abstract because there's this like God thing that's going to take care of everything, and you just don't worry about anything ever again. Like, so it the way that we got stuck in it is that it's a very sticky idea, and it's dualistic, and we have I think the reason our species is stuck in it is because of sexual dimorphism. I think you can anchor it to that, and then since it's basically sexual dimorphism and it's a tautology, so you get stuck in the tautology and it's anchored to sexual dimorphism, which is never going to go away because that's how we make babies.
Right. This is actually very interesting because I fell down a rabbit hole over the last couple of weeks about cults and mysteries and true crime. I do this sometimes. I go through intermittent phases of being like, true crime is the craziest thing ever. And I think the one that sticks out the most is probably the Branch Davidians in Waco. Or the FLDS. Because in both cases, it was that sort of lack of abstraction, right? It was just, this one man will fix everything. If I just do what this one man says, if I just follow this one man,
yes,
everything will be magical, right? And again, like, this was a proxy for God, right? In both cases, I can't remember his last name, but the leader of the Branch Davidians in Waco, Texas, as well as also can't remember his name, but the former leader of the FLDS. These were proxies for God. They were prophets, or they were the second coming of Jesus. They were an embodiment of, the Christian God.
They themselves became a tautology. To say that,
yes,
yeah, you say them, you're saying God. You say God, you're saying them. Yeah. They're the same as, and it's like, yeah.
I want to respond to Jamie here. I guess I don't want to get like all the way into it because it's the whole thing, but like, that's just that's like textbook reactionaries. I guess that's textbook reactionary conservatism. It has existed for hundreds of years at least under the definition we currently understand is reactionary conservatism. It is, and this is where it's specifically defined as reactionary conservatism, but this is also just the general philosophy of conservatism globally. It's obviously more severe in the States, but it is the idea of conserving the values of a fictional utopian past. And this is why it's so often a political ideology that is held by majority rule, right? So in the United States and in many other European countries, it is primarily a view held by white people. Specifically, I'm saying that like within the group of people that hold these beliefs, that group is primarily who is in majority rule, because this is also true in other non-white majority countries, where conservatism is primarily held as a belief by whoever sort of is the cultural majority rule, because whatever that utopian past they're imagining is colored by a time when things were even better for whoever that majority is. So in the case of like the States, I can't speak to Europe quite as much. I don't follow that history as closely, but in the States, white people could do whatever the hell they wanted, and were not, didn't have to, we'll say, economically compete with people from other ethnic or cultural backgrounds. It's very complicated, but I feel like that's kind of the gist of it.
I'll check what that was in the chat in a second.
It was just like a general statement of like, I want to go back to the good old days.
Oh, there is no good old days. Yeah.
There is no good old days. It's a fiction. And I was just, and that's the explanation I was making, is that like, that's conservatism in a nutshell. It's just imagining a time in the past where things were better, because that time doesn't actually exist.
And I don't think anybody alive today understands Nazism, so there's that. Or maybe not anybody. There's probably some academics that do, but firsthand, no.
Sure.
So I don't think. Yeah, I would really like Nazism to be retired as a thing that we say constantly. I would love that. Neo-Nazism, sure, but please, let's stop using that word. It's not. Use neo-Nazism. Be specific, please. That's my soapbox on that. Yeah, like, it's just not helpful. And also, like, it just makes me pissed off every single time, because, yeah. Okay. Oh, yeah. No, it's okay. I'm almost to go outside.
Also, I think it has to be sort of pointed out, like there has to be a consistent reminder that things can appear worse now because we have a level of
complexity.
well, I was going to say like media retention and communication that so far exceeds anything prior to the last 20 years, that just the sheer volume of tragedies that you can engage with as like literature or video or lecture can make things seem worse than they were.
You also
Whereas
need
prior to the age of the internet, you not only could you not access this information as readily, but it wasn't being preserved the way that it is now. There were things happening all over the world that were horrible and awful that weren't being documented as rigorously as they are now. So even today, to go back and try and understand the full scope of the tragedies throughout the 1900s is a difficult task, because a lot of that stuff is not going to be rigorously documented, and you would have to dig really hard to find some of the more obscure things in parts of the world that weren't as much in the spotlight as some of the bigger tragedies that we can all sort of internalize throughout history in the 1900s, right? So this is, I mean, this is maybe a stupid example, but like this was a big part of why 2012 sort of took off as hard as it did, because there was a perception that natural disasters were increasing in frequency when they weren't. It was just that the technology that we have to track natural disasters throughout the world, as well as disseminate the information about those disasters to the public, skyrocketed. So more people were more aware of roughly the same amount of natural disasters.
Well, and the issue is, and none of those people were at the same time taught more abstract reasoning skills, because if you're going to have a larger volume of data, you need a higher level of abstraction to interpret the data.
Yeah.
So that's the problem. So if you interpret a larger amount of data at the same level of abstraction, you're going to get confused. You're going to say things are analogous that are not. So that's what people do.
That's a good point. No, that's a really, really good point.
So what we should be doing is training people in abstraction, like and having that skill increase, because it's necessary, because we refuse to reduce the volume of information that we have access to. So then we're going to have
we
do
shouldn't.
It that way.
It's like having this level of information access and communication is going to be crucial to the social development of our species moving forward.
I agree, but it's if we do not train people in this higher level of abstraction and figure out how to train as many people in as possible, even with limitations, then we're going to be in big trouble, because we'll say that something is similar to another thing in a sense that it's inappropriate to say that it's similar, and it really isn't. So the problem is we need to, and this is the problem, because we're going to have some people, like if you cannot learn that level of abstraction, then you're going to be more impaired in society.
Right.
So that's another problem. So so then we need to have more social welfare systems for people that can't do that level of abstraction and still live in this world with as much information, is what I think is going to end up happening, which is very uncomfortable, because then we have to talk about brains as impaired, which I would greatly appreciate myself, because I have a form of impairment in my brain. So it's like for people to compare things that are not comparable, you kind of just.
Oh.
My dog has me outside. If somebody's comparing things that aren't really comparable, you have to stop them and say, the problem is that you're doing that at all, and that's like, I don't know what you do. Like,
I run into this problem more often than I would expect with people I wouldn't necessarily expect it from. Most frequently, when I present argumentative parameters, and then the the other person disputes that with their own parameters that are different from my own.
Well, then we're not going to talk about the same thing, are we? Like,
exactly.
Yeah.
This is what happened, and I don't want to. Obviously, most of the examples I'm going to have are like of any social interaction these days are going to be my roommate because they're the person I spend the most time around. But I'm not trying to like, I don't want to make it sound like I'm trying to throw them under the bus or like attack them intellectually or anything, because I'm not. I respect them a lot. But this is sort of what happened yesterday with the sort of silly geometry argument. I was making an argument about distance over slope. Basically, my argument was that slope adds distance. If you're comparing a straight line to a slope, the slope will always be longer given the same start and end point.
Mm-hmm.
And we ended up using Pythagorean's theorem to demonstrate that, a squared plus b squared equals c squared, and that the straight line plus another straight line at a perpendicular angle creates a longer straight line on a slope. And I honestly can't remember exactly how everything shook down, but like by the time we did that, and we clearly determined that the slope was a longer distance than the flat straight line, that didn't sort of conclude the argument for me to be like, see, look, if you add a slope to your travel becomes longer.
Mm-hmm.
And I almost got stuck because I'm like, wait, no, it's over. My point is proved. This is the point I was making right here.
Mm-hmm.
Why are we I don't understand what we're still talking about. And I never really know what to do with that kind of thing. Like, this person is abstracting in a different direction than myself.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know how to rectify that sort of thing.
I think it's a skill. I don't know how to do it yet either. I'm learning about it. That's why I think we should all read that category theory book.
Yeah.
It's been helping me a lot. Like, a lot of the things I'm talking about now, I'm pulling directly from reading. Yeah, I think we have to be able to we have to have a skill where we can be like, hey, you're at a different level of abstraction than I am, or the way that you're creating that is from a different field, even if it's parallel and the level of abstraction is similar. It's totally different models that disagree with each other. So either we're going to have an argument about which model is correct, because I'm going to say mine is and you're going to say yours is. And a lot of times people, they don't have that level of abstraction. They don't argue about that. They want to argue about the conclusions from the model. I'm like, but we haven't agreed on the model, so this is stupid.
Right. One of the right at the very end of the argument, they had said something along the lines of because based on the numbers that we used, it was one side was 10 feet, one side was 5 feet, which made the hypotenuse 11 point something feet.
Mm-hmm.
And they were like, yeah, but it's not that much. And I was like, yeah, but that's not the argument I was making.
Right.
I'm saying it is more. That's it. That was my point.
Right. They're saying that it's in some
and it's
other context.
I don't where did that disconnect occur?
Right.
Where you thought I was making a different argument than I was making.
Were they talking about it in a specific situation? Were they literally talking about going somewhere? Yeah, then that's what they meant. Yeah. They meant that
because they were talking about where they park their car is at the top of I won't use names, but it's at the top of a really long hill.
Mm-hmm.
And one way is less slope but more distance.
Right.
And the other way is like a shorter sort of raw distance, but a way steeper slope.
Right.
So I got into talking about how, like, well, yeah, but you have to add the extra distance that going up is adding.
Which one does he prefer? Or they, sorry. Oh my god. Which one?
The steeper one.
The steeper one. Okay. Great. So then they were probably just talking about, like, this is the choice that I made. And you're saying here's an abstraction, one layer up from the real life choice you're making in life.
Right.
Which I did that to Kyle like 2 days ago or yesterday. I don't know. No, 2 days ago. I don't know when I did that. No, 2 days ago. Yeah. Where it was like he was offering a solution, but I was one layer of abstraction up, where I was saying, well, that solution won't work because in my model, that solution doesn't make sense, because in my model, which I'm still trying to explain, which is like on like the brain and stuff, in my model that's impossible because one brain works like that and it works for that brain, but my model, my hypothesis is that there's a different kind of brain, and that different kind of brain excludes that potentiality, so that solution won't work for that kind of brain. But I wasn't explaining it like that, right? Which if I had said, and that explanation wasn't even as clean as it should be eventually if I get better at this. So I think like part of my mission in streaming and just like being somebody who gives a shit and talks to people, like, is to try to advocate for more of this. And eventually, like, really we should have like the ChatGPT training people in this in subtle ways and overt ways. Hopefully overt would be better, but like, why do I like talking to ChatGPT is you can take it up a layer and down a layer pretty easily. You can just ask it to.
Right. Well, and
a level, rather.
We're probably going to see, well, maybe not probably, I shouldn't say probably because I don't actually know, but there is some likelihood that ChatGPT is going to be taken down for some time.
Really, what?
Yeah, there's like a specific commission that deals with like AI and like development technologies.
But I need it.
And they
can I pay for it?
Either with the FCC or the FTA. There are some concerns about like security and like regulation policy. Here, let me see if I can just.
But I need it. I need it. And Jamie, like what I want to say about the levels of abstraction, no matter what they do, it's a teachable thing, but you probably have to teach it differently for different people. It depends, because one of the and there's probably people where they may have some feature of their brain where it's not realistic, and you're going to need to give them some of, like, basically, if as many people understand it as possible, right, as well as possible, then we're good, because then we can make accommodations for people who have a limitation in their brain that might make that unrealistic. Like, I'm talking about like a whole region of their brain just can't fire properly in order to do certain sequences that are necessary for abstract thinking to function like this. So, but most people, yes, like the vast majority of people, including autistic people, can do this. It just needs to be trained more specifically. And we have to abandon some other things, like the way that we teach math is wrong, for example, is probably what this is going to end up with from what I'm understanding. So then we'll have to teach math totally differently, but we'll have a lot more successful people who are doing higher advanced math, but also can do abstractions. Instead of everybody, getting yeeted out of math because we're teaching this unhelpful way to understand why math exists in the first place. And so basically, like, you don't regard them as lesser. Those people are just going to need help. They're not lesser. Nobody's lesser. It's just like, so here's the thing. So if somebody's intelligent, intelligence means it's applied to something. You can't be intelligent in a void. You can't be intelligent in a vacuum. You have to be intelligent about something, right? So intelligence is the ability to have a model that's appropriate for the task. Okay, if somebody can't even hold the model in their head or manipulate the model in their head, you're going to have to give them some external way of working with the correct model. So whenever you have somebody that has a limitation, then you look for an external adaptation, right? And you may even find that because human brains are so interesting, they may have some other insight that's possible because of how their brain talks to itself and how they're, and then they may have some other really helpful nuance or avenue that typically isn't getting explored that is explored in them. So you would just have to modify and not have them do it the same way as everybody else, because that's abusive to make somebody do something that they can't. Like, that's not fair. So nobody's lesser than. Also, it's not about right or wrong, right? Like, right or wrong implies that somebody's right for it and someone's wrong for it. That's not what we're trying to do. We're trying to get away from dualism in and of itself. Like, abstraction takes you out of dualism. So that's implying a moral argument at the very least about like something being different. That's not what we're saying. So right and wrong is not important in my book at all, because it's not even helpful. It's so like not to the point most of the time that it's usually a discussion that just doesn't even need to happen. And I would never imply that somebody is the right thing or the wrong thing in some general sense. There's no that. It's just like, what is accurate, what is precise. Like, we need precision, not right or wrong. We need to know, like, what exactly do you need?
Here we go. It took me a while to find something. This isn't the exact article. Although, in my searching, I did just find that ChatGPT has been blocked in Italy over privacy concerns.
Okay.
It was the FTC. So OpenAI is facing a new complaint to the Federal Trade Commission that urges the agency to investigate the group and suspend its commercial deployment of large language models, including the latest iteration of ChatGPT. The complaint, made public by the nonprofit research group Center for AI and Digital Policy, accuses OpenAI of violating Section 5 of the FTC Act, which prohibits unfair and deceptive business practices, and the agency's guidance for AI products. The nonprofit research group calls GPT-4 biased, deceptive, and a risk to privacy and public safety. The group says the large language model fails to meet the agency's standards for AI to be transparent, explainable, fair, and empirically sound while fostering accountability. The group wants the FTC to require OpenAI establish a way to independently assess GPT products before they're deployed in the future. It also wants the FTC to create a public incident reporting system for GPT-4, similar to its systems for reporting consumer fraud.
Mm-hmm.
It also wants the agency to take on a rulemaking initiative to create standards for generative AI products.
That's fine. It's not going to impact me.
Yeah, and I know some of what I've seen, I know is also like a lot of people have the same concerns about ChatGPT and other iterative language models that artists have had with things like Midjourney and Stable Diffusion, which is that it's scraping data from online without consent and without concern for privacy. So, like, I did see an example where somebody was like, "Hey, can you give me the first chapter of this book?" And it just types out the first chapter of the book word for word.
Right.
So that sort of thing gets into all the weird copyright stuff that's going around with these AI models sort of broadly. And we are definitely going to start seeing some form of policymaking, regulation, legislation around how this is going to be done. I know that either like patent offices or there was some legislation or something that already determined that art generated by AI programs cannot be copyrighted. So I even saw something that like that they need to watermark the results that you get from these iterative language models, so as to ensure that there is always transparency that where this information came from was from an iterative language model, and so it can't be repurposed quite so easily. But yeah, I mean, I think the privacy concerns and stuff are relatively fair. I think that, and I didn't know this until I started reading up on it the first time I saw the article, that OpenAI was owned by Elon Musk. I had no idea.
I did not know that either.
And then when you look at the other iterative language models, and even stuff like Midjourney and Stable Diffusion, like these are companies owned by the same tech bros that we've been seeing across the industry. Like, these aren't particularly innovative or forward-thinking people. They're the same tech bros that we've been seeing in Silicon Valley for the last 20 years. So they're not going to be following ethical business practices or policies. They're going to do whatever makes their model, their business, whatever, their tech most successful and most profitable.
Yeah.
I mean, Midjourney just canceled their free trials. You can't have a free trial with Midjourney anymore.
Right.
And I expect that DALL-E and OpenAI will probably eventually adopt similar models where at best you can get like a very small free trial, but to do anything interesting with the models you'll have to pay. Just because there's more than enough precedent set that the companies that are running these models are going to do that.
I'm going to argue that
they're not innovators of open and free information sharing. They are tech bros that want to make a lot of money.
I know that. So one thing I'm going to say is that what I want to develop is my superimposition thing, and I think if there's any cost to that, it should be covered by insurance for people who are disabled. That's where we're going to be. We're going to have AI tech that is covered by your insurance because it is a disability accommodation. That's what we need. I don't care if it's still for-profit model, whatever. We don't figure out utopia.
Yeah, well, we're not going to escape that. That's just that is a given.
Right.
Everything in the world that we live in right now is except for very, very niche examples, is going to be for-profit, and we just sort of have to work around that.
Right. So there's going to be, and like I'm telling you this like because this just has to exist, and like it just needs to exist. You're going to have different models of AI, including augmented reality, that are going to be for people with different cognitive disabilities and other kinds of disabilities potentially as well, and it'll be covered just the way that my CPAP is covered.
Yeah, well, and that brings, because based on my experience with insurance in the medical industry, that is not the case. Right?
No, it's going to have to be the case. Yeah, they're going to have to figure it out, immediately.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Well, they're not going to have to figure it out. We're going to have to figure it out.
Well, yeah.
We're going to have to set a precedent and figure out how to shift the direction of
we should be writing
the medical
to our
industry and insurance
Congress
to cover, because by that logic your ear defenders should be covered by insurance.
Yes, they should be. Yes.
Your face mask should be covered by insurance.
Your weighted blanket. Yes. Yeah.
Right, your weighted blanket should be covered by insurance.
Yes.
And we, as a collective of disabled people, will have to do an immense amount of work to shift the current state of that industry to actually support that stuff. Because, I mean, if you talk to any physically disabled person, it's hard enough for them to get their external support systems paid for by insurance.
Mm-hmm.
There are absolutely tons of people who have had to pay for their wheelchairs, their electric chairs, their whatever, having that paid for by insurance. I mean, fuck, think about glasses.
Yeah.
Right? My glasses should be free. Period.
Yep. Well,
I need them to see. I can't function in the world without them.
Mm-hmm.
And yet, if I don't have even some insurance, they will cost me hundreds of dollars to get a pair. And with insurance, with good insurance, they're still going to cost me like $60, right? So this is a big political issue, unfortunately, because and that's it's just something that collectively is going to have to be worked towards to reform healthcare.
We're gonna have to lobby
how we
to
support. Yes, we
research as well. So you need the research to back up the necessity. So that's what you need to do. So we need to have people that are making sure that government grants are going towards research that proves that this is how you get people to have functional lives in such a way that it's comparable to other medical devices. That's what we need to prove, which I don't even think is going to be that hard. We basically, so here's what I think should happen. So it looks like our generation is not very interested in running for office right now, and that's dope. We don't have to do that, but we do have to start yelling at them all the time. And that's where I'm arriving at. I don't know exactly what that looks like yet, and I have way too much autism to have like a game plan, but this is what's going to have to happen, is we're going to have to say, like, these are the needs we're going to have tomorrow. And even if you don't understand them, guess what you have at your disposal? Grants for research. Old fogies.
Obviously we're a long way off from this, and there's really no way of predicting it, but it does give me curiosity about how things are going to be in like 20 or 30 years.
Me too.
Because like, obviously there's been this notion for a long time that like, oh, once the boomers die, everything's going to get better. But like, I've been friends with Gen X. My parents are Gen X. I know a lot of Gen X people. They're not going to fix things. They're going to bork it up the same way the boomers have. Right. So it's really going to come down to what's going to happen when the only people left to take office are Gen Z and millennials.
Mm-hmm.
And it is interesting because there's so much nihilism in those two generational groups, which I think is where the lack of leadership interest is coming from.
Yeah,
is the nihilism and the disillusion.
We don't have stable housing. How are we supposed to How are we supposed to even do that? Like, we don't even have somewhere to live, let alone move somewhere for government. Bullshit.
So there is that kind of interest, and like, all right, well, what's going to happen to that system when two full generations, 40 years worth of people don't want to be a part of that system?
Mm-hmm.
So, which is to say, there's plenty of people in those two generational groups that have been sufficiently conditioned and groomed by the people in charge, the leadership groups, to act like them. But it's not like, I feel, and this could be totally wrong. My perception of this could be way off, but I do get the feeling that there's way more older people right now that want to be in charge, right? Like I get the feeling that there are lots of older people that are clamoring to be in positions of leadership and in power, whereas younger people are not.
Well, we can't. We're not stable enough
to. Right, of course. So I do wonder if, like, is the system going to sort of crumble under that weight and be forced to change to accommodate that? Or are the very few that have been conditioned to act like the sort of, the current power system just going to fill in the space? And
so here,
I just to finish that, like, I am definitely making speculations that cannot be concluded upon. It's just not only is it not within the capability of my brain to like create a sequence that complex, but it's also just unreasonable to try and predict 20, 30, 40 years in the future.
And it's very, very abstract. I'm going to go down a layer.
It's extremely abstract.
Yeah, so I'm going to go down a couple levels in abstraction and then move over to a specific spot. So this is what I'm saying. So right now, we have this opportunity because, think about it this way, you could argue this to any of these people in governments across the globe. If we had not put any of those governmental funds towards research, what would have happened with COVID? Do you see what I'm saying here? Right. So it's like, so they're able to understand that. You can even get the right wingers because there's certain research they want, you know, even though they have a little bit of a anti-science, anti-academia, you know, bend to them. They still want research because they have their own motivations, where you can get them to say, well, research is good. That's what we need to say. Well, research is good. Can we get research in this? And you can get some concessions at this point. So basically, you can go tit for tat on research right now, and you'll so like, okay, the Republicans want research on probably transitioning. Okay, great. We give them that. We want research on guns.
Right.
So then we have a chance to possibly get to a point where, like, the zeitgeist is right for us to get us into those conversations finally. And then you say, well, the preponderance of the evidence is now saying we have to do this. And now we have these AIs that can also chunk it for us when it gets too big for us. So this is what we should be moving towards, which means, once again, like, I think way more people should be researchers. I think the future of humanity is researchers who have artsy fartsy things they also do, in my opinion. And all kinds of other fun stuff, right? But like everything we do, there's a researcher that gives a shit about it. Ballet, all sports medicine, all that, right? I belong to IADMS, International Association of Dance Medicine and Science, whatever, okay, blah, blah. So everything that exists, there's somebody that can research it, right? So we need more people who think like researchers. And even, I think I was talking about this like years ago, but it's refined a bit since then, being like a part-time researcher. And then we have some sort of a hub where we can give those insights. Right now, we have to yell at our governments to build those hubs and to start acting like a hub for now, because they have all the fucking money. And that's the only way you get research done is money. I think if we hit that really hard, we're going to be in a good shape. So, if there's any way for people to get involved in a field that's dependent on research to function, get involved in that field. Even like nonprofits are like that too. So it doesn't have to be like something where you're sitting behind a calculator all day. Ideally not. But even just like if somebody's disabled, it's like, what do you want research on? Like with autism, we're not even getting to research what we want. Hello? Did I lose you? Am I here? What happened? I don't hear anything. Am I still here? Did I mess something up? Where did Rowan go? Rowan's gone! Oh no! I was like, oh, I was waiting for Rowan to talk because Rowan would normally have talked about there. And then I'm like, I guess I'll just keep talking. And then after a while, I'm like, I really shouldn't be talking this long. This is definitely wrong. Kyle, you're cool. Did I tell you that lately? Hey!
Hello?
What happened?
Hello!
Hello! I kept trying to kick.
To take out the...
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I went to take out the trash, and so I turned off my Wi-Fi, and my mobile data just didn't turn on.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah.
I was talking for a while, and I kept trying to kick the soapbox out from under me. I'm like, oh, no one's talking. I guess I'll keep going.
Yeah, no, I definitely missed a good portion of that.
Oh, well, okay. So basically, what I was saying was we have research needs money, the governments have the money. Eventually, I think I was saying this years ago, we should all be part-time researchers in very specific fields, and then whatever else we want to do. And, a lot of times we might want to research the thing that we're involved in, which might be even our own brains, you know what I mean? So, like, ask communities that are impacted by something, what do they want research on? And then, for now, the government is going to have to be the hub that eventually we'll have to have built, where research is consolidated and the funding for research is allocated. So for now, we have to just yell at them and say, hey, let's do some trade-offs here. Like I was saying, the Republicans probably want a bunch of research on transitions.
I got that part.
Yeah. Okay, so we just start playing them that way and say, like, if you had the research in advance of the pandemic around more viruses, because virologists were telling you to do that for decades, actually, then you would have been a happy camper, wouldn't you? And so, we lean into that. And then I think, so what I'm suggesting is like levels of abstraction down and then over to the side. I think if we hit this really hard, we can do something extremely useful and versus any other options that I've seen so far. I feel like this is the best option. And then I was saying that you can get involved in different organizations that already have to deal with government grants and trying to get research to be applied in real life situations, right?
And this brings me to an idea that obviously has been floating around in our head for a while, that we need to start a nonprofit.
Right, exactly.
Obviously, it's fair to say that that's a long-term goal that we're not in any current position to start enacting, but it's the problem is that we don't have our own platform from which to direct any sort of public or social interest. And with a nonprofit, we could do that.
Right.
We could get our own funding, we could take grants and donations and so on and direct them where we think they should go in terms of research and whatever else.
Right.
Because we can't do that as individuals.
Yep.
And then we would be able to wrap our sort of advocacy goals into that nonprofit organization.
Yep.
However we want to do that.
Yeah, I agree. I think that I agree very strongly. And it's like, yeah. And then we can, like, the nonprofit could, build towards the superimposition tool and all of that stuff and all the other issues around it. So yeah, I think ultimately, like, I don't know what to. You need a gimmick. Like, I'm super down at this point because, like, what kind of, like, you know who I'm talking about when I'm like, that one guy. And how that person isn't even that far off age-wise and, like, imploded. I'm like,
Yeah. Well, it's funny because I was literally just going to bring up that, like, it's kind of funny because, like, up until this point, like, every time I thought about starting a nonprofit, I always had that one guy in mind.
Yeah.
Because, like, at least hypothetically, his whole jam was always, like, wanting to help other people do their own thing, and that, like, he had told me on multiple cases that he would be more than happy to basically be a consultation service to help me start my own nonprofit.
Right. Well, I mean,
that ship has sailed.
Yeah, but point being is, like, look, if other people can do it, I don't see any. I'm running out of reasons why I couldn't do it.
Right.
And then I don't have to deal with anybody's hokey BS anymore. Like, I don't like dealing with people that don't get me, only because, like, I'm not a dancing monkey, like, I have a point, and if someone's waiting for me to entertain them sufficiently or be cute enough or whatever, I don't have time for the shit. Like, nobody has time for that shit. But what I'm trying to do is actually important. So I just can't care anymore. So maybe that's what it is. It's like start a nonprofit, just go, and then partner with. I have like 2 or 3 partnerships I already could easily connect to at this point. Gosh, I could probably mine a whole bunch of things from my career, being all over the place. Like I probably have dance things I could get involved in at this point. So yeah, like maybe I think that's it. And then like I'm gonna email that that cafe this later today.
What?
I need the cafe that I want to do the freestyle at.
Oh yeah. I totally forgot.
Yeah, no, it's okay. The freestyle can be part of the nonprofit, right?
Yeah, that'd be sick.
Right? It can be an outreach thing / whatever. So yeah. It's like how do you sell this to people? It's like the intersection of
sidebar.
Go ahead. Yeah.
We need to have a work day.
Yeah, we do.
Or even just like
do you want to keep working today? Like take a break, come back? No, okay, never mind.
Just yeah. I just need to like sort of get back on track.
Okay.
Because this week was a week.
Yeah. Oh, and also Kyle will be in town. We can have a day of doing stuff around here.
What? When does he come in?
Next Friday. This upcoming Friday.
The 7th?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. So there's that.
Have you done any outreach about the photo shoot?
Nope. I needed to make the thing and I never did because I kind of was going to ask you to do it and then I never followed up.
That's fair.
Can you make a thing to ask people about if they are free on Saturday or Sunday?
What does it need to be?
It says, hey, can you give me a hand? It'll be funny, right? I'm like, hey, are you free Saturday night or Sunday nights to come over and be some hands in a photo shoot? Thank you. And I'm going to send it to a bunch of people. And it just needs to be like one of those Google survey things, so that you can pick which one you want. Pick which day you're free, or both. And then I have to send it to people.
Okay.
And it'll probably be like, I don't know, like 7, 8, something like that. Maybe I put like 7 option for 7 and option for 8. And both Saturday and Sunday. Hooray. And I'll only need them for like half an hour, if that, Maybe. Yeah. Cool. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I need. Oh no.
Different sidebar. This is totally unrelated. Did you? I don't expect that you would have read it, but did you see the character backstory that I posted in our chat?
I saw it. I didn't read it. I would like to read it.
You don't have to read it. I'm not, but I bring it up because I don't think I told you yet, but we had to stop the campaign we were playing.
Oh no! What happened?
It's all right. Comfy was just getting burnt out. It was her first homebrew campaign.
Oh, okay.
And she was writing it as we went. And it was just too much. It was too much to keep up with the responsibilities of just being a DM, while also having to like write the next portion of the story in between each session and account for all of our decisions that we might make to sort of derail the sort of direction of the story and everything. And she just sort of confided in the group to just be like, hey, this is too much. I'm not having fun anymore. Can we do something else? Okay. So we're going to play like a pre-made adventure.
Oh, nice. Okay. That's nice.
Yeah. So, and it's like sort of like a woodland forest creature sort of campaign. So like all of our characters are going to be little anthropomorphic woodland creatures.
Cute.
Naturally, I'm playing a fox person.
Of course you are.
Yeah, so I started writing my backstory, which I like writing backstories. I think it's pretty fun. I usually do like a handful of paragraphs. Like if I'm not super into it, I'll do like a paragraph. If I'm like really into it, maybe 2 or 3. I wrote 3,000 words.
Whoa!
Yeah.
What the heck happened there? You wrote a book?
I just got really carried away.
How many pages is that?
In a Word document, I think it's 4 pages.
Yike. Okay, yeah, that's a lot. Wow.
Yeah, I kept making like at like 1,500 words. I kept making the joke that I accidentally made my backstory a college thesis, and then by the end of it, it was double in length, and I was just like, "Oops."
Whoops. Well, that's cool. Yeah. Well, neat.
Yeah, and it's really funny because I started to reread it yesterday after I shared it with the guild, and like you can tell in the first paragraph or 2 that I wasn't planning on writing this absurd backstory. Like it's pretty short, it's pretty curt. Like there's like a solid like 8-year time jump without any like sort of catch up in between. And then just as it goes, it just gets more and more dense and more sort of explanatory.
Well done.
Yeah, it was fun. It was funny, after I posted it, Comfy's first response was, "Have you ever considered being a dungeon master?" So I don't want to do like a full work day, but after HCAT, if you want, we can stick on for just a little extra bit.
Sure.
Just to sort of get back on track. I can make that sheet, and then we can get your socials reconnected.
Yay.
So that I can start making Insta posts again.
Hooray.
Because we're like 2 weeks off.
Yes, let's do that. I have things that I need to post for anyway, so yeah, we'll do that.
Yeah, because we have 3 performances from the freestyle or the cipher.
Dope. That sounds great.
I was sad that one of the files doesn't have sound, but on the upside, it's the worst one.
Oh, well then, yeah, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, it was
the first
like
one?
Not the worst one as in your worst performance, but the worst recording.
Oh, okay.
Because the other cameraman kept getting in my way.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was like the only one where like he just kept standing in front of me and I kept having to move.
Which round was that?
That was round 2. Might have been round 3.
Okay.
But I know I got your first round and your last round. It was either 2 or 3 that wasn't any good.
Okay, probably 2. Cool. I'm gonna run to the bathroom, so
Okay.
I'll be back.
How's everyone's Housekeep-a-thon going? Are we managing our spaces successfully? I sort of did. I put away clean laundry and took out the trash. That's about the extent of what I did. Hey, that's a very useful thing to do during Housekeep-a-thon. Because that makes future Housekeep-a-thons more successful. I've actually talked about sorry, I just pulled the mic away from my face and continued talking, not realizing that would make it harder for you to hear me. I've talked a good bit in the past about sort of the difficulties that come with Housekeep-a-thon, especially outside of like a certain level of consistency, because if you aren't able to get your spaces or individual space into sort of a consistently manageable sort of realm, then every HCAT you're going to be continuously working on getting the sort of fundamentals of your space back to manageable levels, and you never get to work on some of the more directed or specific organizational tasks, which oftentimes can be the most important ones when considering sort of the long-term consistency of your space. You know, finding homes for things. When stuff in your space doesn't have homes, you know, it's so much easier for those things to just sort of end up wherever. So finding ways to create a level of consistency with future Housekeep-a-thons can be really, really, really helpful in the long run, even if you don't even fully understand the scope of how it's going to help. Doing something like that, getting your cleaning supplies into a manageable order where you know where they are, you generally are going to know where to find them. So like if you suddenly get the motivation to clean your bathroom, you know, or whatever, you can just go grab the cleaning supplies, right? I think this can be the issue with not being able to do sequencing, is that when you want to do something and there's a goal that becomes sort of the first thing, in this case it's get the cleaning supplies, but then you go to get them and you don't know where they are, you don't know how to find them, suddenly your goals sort of scatter, and it can be really easy for us to find a goal that's more achievable at that time. So then you don't end up cleaning your bathroom. I don't know if that made any sense. I think it did. This also generally makes me think of like, I've heard a lot of, I feel like I've heard a lot of people in general talk about this, but especially neurodivergent people, at least some autistic people I've heard talk about this, the importance of having stations for your special interests and things. Because if you want to engage in your special interest or do, you know, whatever it is you want to do, and you can't just do the thing at the time you want to do it, then I think same sort of thing, your goals get scattered. And I think often the task of find the stuff that you need is sort of a sequencing task of walking through the sequences of all the places it could be, and if they're all in different places, it's the sequences of finding one and then moving to the next space and then in the next. So not having all of your special interest items on, like at their stations, can make it difficult to engage with your special interests at all. I think it's kind of the same thing.
What were you saying? Special interests? What's the same thing?
Shade was saying that they were organizing their cleaning supplies.
Oh.
And I was talking about how it can be really important during HCAT to do some of those sort of preliminary, I guess, preparation tasks or like organizational tasks for future HCATs.
Right.
Because a lot of the times those are the things that impede being able to sort of consistently manage your space. Things like, not having homes for your stuff, because that's how it becomes scattered. That's how it gets left out all over the place. Whereas when it has a home, it's more likely for it to find its place back to that home.
Mm-hmm.
Like I used the example of cleaning a bathroom. If during HCAT or, whenever really, you get the motivation to clean your bathroom, but you don't know where the cleaning supplies are, well, now your goal is not clean the bathroom. Your goal is find the cleaning supplies, which might require some amount of sequencing. And you might abandon that goal and find something else more achievable. And now you didn't clean your bathroom.
Mm-hmm.
But if you know where the cleaning supplies are and you don't have to do any sequencing to find them, you can just grab them and clean the bathroom. And then I transitioned into talking about like special interest stations. How it's the same sort of concept that, like, if you want to do a special interest but you don't know where your special interest items are, you might not do your special interest because you might have to do some sequencing to find those items.
Right.
And you might just choose to do something else that's more achievable in that moment. Whereas if it's all in its station, it's all there, then once you get there, you can just do it.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. I'm taking a little break to just play with my Sims game because I like it.
I've pretty much decided that I'm done today.
Cool. Yeah, I think we're good. I think I've been doing more during the week, and I'm gonna do another one too because Kyle's coming. So
yeah,
I'll do another one during the week. So I think this is fine.
I actually wasn't even sure if I was going to join today because I woke up really late.
Yeah.
Thank you. Me too. And it was actually because I was having computer troubles. And so I did a system restore because I had updated some stuff yesterday that seemed to make some less than ideal changes. So I wanted to roll those changes back, and the system restore was taking way longer than I thought it would. Look at the tiny little fairy.
Yeah. I made some fairies live in this thing.
So I was just sort of sitting here staring at my computer screen like, man, this is taking a really long time. And there were things I wanted to do, and now I just have to sit here and not do them. And like, one of the things that I was having issues with was that my computer, for some reason, like my audio drivers, were only allowing for one output device, period. So like, there wasn't speakers and headphones. There was just speakers, and if I had my headphones plugged in, they were being treated as the speakers. So in order to use my speakers, I had to unplug my headphones.
Oh shit. Okay.
Which is annoying. I don't want to have to do that. I don't want to have to plug and unplug my head. I just want to be able to click a button.
Right.
So I was like holding my headphones, and I was like, I could definitely be doing something better with my time right now.
Mm-hmm.
So I just decided to hop in, and so I did. I'm glad I did.
Yay. Yeah, me too. Otherwise, I first of all, I wouldn't have had the conversation I was hoping to. So thank you for helping me to work through some of those things that I'm learning and thinking about. And then also, let's start a non-profit. Like, I mean, that's like, I was like, as I said that, I'm like, wow, that's such a heavy, loud thing for me to dump on myself. But it's possible. So yeah, we'll just figure it out.
It is, yeah. Also, sidebar, I went to Out of the Closet.
Oh yeah.
The other day.
Woo.
And got a new jacket, and I put it in fashion school. You should check it out.
Oh, awesome! I will check it out. Hold on, let me go look right now.
I don't even know what to call it. It's like kind of a suit jacket, but it's not. It's like, what if a suit jacket was styled after a military jacket?
Tight. That sounds awesome. Let me go look.
I like it a lot.
Okay, let's see. Now I go here, and then I go fashion school. Oh, that's great! Oh wow, I really like it. Huh? Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. That's rad.
Isn't it?
Very cool.
Yeah, I like it a lot. It's a very, very cool jacket.
Yeah, and you can kind of, it's like riding that middle ground of like can be dressier, so you can dressy up stuff with that successfully, but it's not like so full.
Yeah.
That's dope. That's cool. Okay, I'm gonna put
Which
something
sort of plays into like my long-term goals of like wanting to find more ways to turn sort of like formal wear into streetwear.
Yes.
Because I think that'd be really cool.
I like that direction.
I really want to find different ways to fashion like formal button downs.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of want to try and crop one of my formal button downs.
Do it. I haven't seen that before. Yeah, do it.
And like the one I'm thinking about has tails. So I was thinking about potentially cutting tails into the crop. So the back would sort of split into tails.
Cool.
Because I might crop it a little bit longer with tails and see how that looks. So that if I think it looks stupid, I can crop it again and just cut the tails off.
Neat.
Yeah. Also, I want to explore more different ways that male bodies can like express formality outside of slacks and a sport coat.
Yeah.
It's so boring, and I feel like there has to be more interesting ways to dress in a way that accentuates the male body.
Oh yeah, of course there are. Absolutely.
That could be considered formal.
Yep.
Because I don't think I can pull off a dress right now, at least. And like, obviously, if I were to wear a dress, I would have to get it specifically tailored to my shape. Which is also just expensive.
Did I lose you?
Merlin.
Oh, I know, right? He's like, no. All around me are.
Fantastic. Also, that jacket is apparently like designer clothes.
Oh, it is.
Because it came off the designer rack.
Oh, hell yeah.
Out of the closet. It's grab it.
What's it say?
It's Kenneth Cole.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Is not a name I'm familiar with. But
I'm familiar with it. They're kind of pricey.
I mean, it was. Yeah, I mean, it was pretty pricey by like thrift standards. It was $27.
Yeah.
And then I also got like a shawl, scarf sort of thing.
I have so much different kinds of clothes. I have formal wear, I have weird stuff. I would have more clothes, but like it's just not realistic right now to have anything like really, super trendy, or riding trends rather, I should say. Maybe I should say it that way. Because yeah, I don't have that much money.
Same. Did you have you seen any of the pants that I posted in fashion school yesterday to show Isaac?
No, I haven't looked. I just skimmed by it just now, so no. But I noticed it a second ago.
Yeah. I really want pants like that.
Okay, I'll look into it.
Like, there's a lot of them that are this sort of drop crotch, sort of harem style pants.
Yeah.
But the way that they sort of seam the line of the extra fabric gives it an almost sort of like skirt like appearance.
Oh,
and with some of them that even the ones that I posted, there's like clearly a skirt sort of like sewn into it as well. And I love them so much. But all of them are like $100 plus, and none of them would fit me.
Well, this is where learning to sew comes in.
Yeah, which, Kyle followed that up with, hey, does anybody want to learn how to make clothes?
Yeah, I kind of do. Well, I have a sewing machine for that purpose, so yes.
Yeah.
I do.
Because the tallest size that this person's shop makes is 5'7".
Oh wow, yeah, that won't work.
So those would come like halfway up my calves,
right?
And would completely change the line of the pants entirely, which I think would defeat the purpose of me wearing them. So.
Right. Makes sense to me.
But yeah, I just really, really love this person's shop. Like, they're just on a whole nother level of like avant-garde fashion. I would imagine this person probably keeps up with like runway trends.
Oh, cool.
Just like this is just an assumption I have based on just how wild some of the styles that they've come up with are. some of it's even like really goofy.
Mm.
Like I'm looking at a skirt that they made where there's just like half a pant leg that's like sewn onto the front and back of one side of the skirt.
Huh.
So it's like there's like a sort of a detached half pant leg on the front and back, just sort of hanging down the skirt. Like it's not around the leg, it's just hanging down.
Huh.
And I'm like, yeah, that's a style, I guess.
That's an idea.
Yeah. And it's like, it's just it's like, all right, well, what can I do with like denim deconstruction and a skirt?
I think look at fashion school. No, I want to know what this person's stuff is.
Here.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, that does. I bet that's not that hard to sew, honestly. Cool. Yeah, I want to figure out how to sew stuff like that. That'd be sick. I meant to be working on that more than I currently am, but...
I mean, fabric's expensive, even,
Yeah.
It's not as expensive as just outright buying clothes, but it is still pretty expensive to buy lots of fabric.
Yeah. I have to start... Well, I mean, like,
Because that's...
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Well, the goal is that I'm going to start at some point this year to start figuring out making clothes and stuff, because I have, like, the machine to do it. I just haven't started.
Mm-hmm. Right. Well, and, like, I guess the sort of difficult side of it is that, like, yeah, you're going to have to just sort of wing it for a while.
Yep.
And probably waste a pretty substantial amount of fabric just trying to see what works.
Hi, Dad. Oh, thank you. Ah, that one's broken. Oh no. That's too bad. Which one of these aren't broken? Alright, well, we can end stream in a second. Still glad I'm not on Twitch. It's weird to be out here and, like, it is pretty hard to, get people new to stop by, but it's whatever. I'll figure out how that's supposed to work.
Yeah, that is definitely one benefit of Twitch, is that, I mean, despite the discoverability still not being great, it's better than YouTube.
Right. Yeah.
Right? Like, it's a lot easier for people to just sort of stumble across what you're doing on Twitch, whereas on YouTube, it's a lot harder to just come across some weirdo doing something different.
Yeah,
it still happens, but it's pretty rare.
Yeah. I mean, when it does happen, it's better. Like, the people that have found me here, it's generally been less issues. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because when people found you on Twitch, like, it could be a troll or whatever. So
Hmm.
just not having to worry about that pretty much at all is pretty nice. If, you know, isolating most of the...
Yeah, and we'll figure that out. I mean, we've sort of had some of that stuff on the back burner for a little while now.
Yeah. All right. Well, cool. Well, trying to think of something to end with, and I'm coming up with a big fat nothing. I don't have any necklaces? Really? Oh, that's a necklace? What the hell? It's kind of a weird necklace. Why don't I don't have any. I have like 2 necklaces. Oh, that one's really cute. Why do I have so few necklaces? And then I have like a Santa beard. That makes no sense. Okay, well, I guess I'll stop. People in chat, thank you for coming. Did you get stuff done? Did you want to track before you leave? If you are tracking, I'd recommend you do that. Before you go. I tracked earlier today, or like, what the hell am I saying? I tracked at the end of the stream too, so before I sat down and started messing with this game, which is the best game, I did track. And what else? Anything else? Those are cute. Cute. Actually, do I like these better? I think I like those better. Okay, alright. Well, goodbye everybody. Goodbye, Rowan. Alright, we can do stuff after
Bye, friends.
this. Right, are we gonna come back and do stuff? I forget.
We can just stay on.
Okay, we'll just stay on. Okay.
Like,
alright.
right now, and we'll just do a couple of things.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, alright, goodbye everybody.
Bye bye.